The news for the new year is Chuck Schumer formally announcing that he has a plan to change these Senate rules once and for all, at least so a minority cannot obstruct the protections of voting rights.
He is saying, let's get rid of the filibuster, not just for voting rights legislation, but for anything Democrats deem important, which you would think is most of their legislation if they were considering it.
I hope the Republican leader and I can, in the coming months, find a way to build a firewall around the legislative filibuster, which is the most important distinction between the Senate and the House.
The Senate is the premier legislative and deliberative body in the world. And that means that it takes its time, and the legislation that may, by popular consent, be popping up in the House of Representatives, the brakes are put on that in the Senate, and it deliberates and it debates. And that's what distinguishes the Senate from the House, and that's why you need to keep it the way it is and has historically been.
Schumer stressed we must adapt. The Senate must evolve like it has many times before. The Senate will debate and consider changes to Senate rules on or before January 17th.
He says the Senate was designed to protect the political rights of the minority in the chamber through the promise of debate and opportunity to amend. But if you get rid of the legislative filibuster, the minority has no protections at all. It's whoever has the simple majority can pass whatever they want.
Are you prepared to support fundamental changes in the Senate rules to get this done?
Yes.
What does that mean?
That means whatever it takes.
It's all about power. It's not really about the ballot. And so they see an opportunity to shove this legislation down the throat of the American people. And apparently they are willing to take advantage of this opportunity. Why? Because they are focused on the short run. They don't care really about the long-term future of the country.
The Biden administration is pushing massive federal COVID mandates, but now the president says he doesn't think the federal government has the ability to successfully handle the pandemic.
A shocking admission from not just the Biden administration, from Joe Biden himself.
There is no federal solution. This gets solved at a state level.
So essentially now you have President Biden saying what we've all been saying, which is this needs to be handled on a state, city, county, on a small scale, smaller government level.
This might have been a classic case of a Freudian slip where he admitted that there really is no federal solution, that he really has no plan to tackle COVID. And this comes after several tweets that have now been uncovered from not too long ago where he was going after Donald Trump at the start of the pandemic for not having a solution to COVID.
I think it might have been a Freudian slip. I think it might have been what he used to believe at his core. But here's the problem with that, and this is going to be stating the obvious. But Logan, obviously his actions are dramatically different from those words. I mean, this mandate that's coming out of OSHA that, I'm sure won't be withdrawn, even though if there's no federal solution, it would be. It's about as onerous and intrusive from the federal level as it could possibly be.
After beating up for, the entire year on places like Texas and Florida and those types of things, voila, it's not a federal problem. Hey, it's you, the governors, you got to do it. Meanwhile, we're going to go ahead and do federal mandates on work requirements, on masks, on airplanes, on all kinds of things.
Problem is we're looking towards these leaders for a definitive 100% clarity and answers, and they give you one, and it ends up having to be something they have to backtrack a few months later. Because when you have President Biden going out there and saying things like there's no federal solution, but then 2 years ago campaigning saying, I will be the one who creates the federal solution, and currently there is a vaccine mandate or an employer mandate at the Supreme Court right now because of the federal solution that I put in, but now I'm saying there's not. This is where the problem lies.
Well, Supreme Court showdown looming over in Washington, the highest court in the land, gearing up to weigh in on the Biden administration's COVID-19 vaccine mandates.
He said there is no federal solution to COVID. Okay? Listen to the president's words.
There is no federal solution. This gets solved at a state level.
Which is our opening line of our brief, Andy, because I rarely agree with President Biden, but I will fully concur with that. There is no federal solution that gets resolved on the state level.
There is a federal response to COVID. It's just not what he's doing. See, what he's doing is imposing unconstitutional mandates. There's OSHA mandates that would require businesses to fire workers who aren't vaccinated. That's the opposite of what he should be doing.
The idea that this is a unique power, police power resting really with the states, and that OSHA itself isn't the entity to be implementing this, as OSHA basically acknowledged early on.
How much power does the federal government, and in this case, Joe Biden in the White House, have over your daily lives.
Legally speaking, that is constitutionally speaking, I think that the OSHA, the agency that's been tasked with this, does not have that authority constitutionally or statutorily.
Congressman Crenshaw says Biden's vax mandate for business is unconstitutional, and a slew of Republicans agree. 47 senators and nearly 140 House members have asked and banded together on the issue. They are asking the Supreme Court to block that mandate. And remember, there is a 6-3 conservative majority among the justices.
You never can predict from an oral argument what the court is going to do. You can never predict what a jury is going to do, for that matter. But in the Supreme Court of the United States, the arguments continue, and you cannot predict what. At first, I thought we would not get a stay. Then as time went on and the justices began arguing our case for us in many respects, I began to see light at the end of the tunnel and thought that there would be, and perhaps think that there will be, a brief administrative stay.
The court admits that the vaccine poses a risk to individuals, and therefore this mandate imposes some risk on employees, and therefore the vaccine mandate should be weighed by each individual employee as opposed to some bureaucrat in Washington, D.C.
Out of the 29 quote-unquote free nations across this world, the United States literally has the lowest level of trust in the media at 29%. The lowest level of the entire free world. Yeah, we're exceptional, all right, in how much our populace absolutely despises the mainstream.
Weekday primetime viewership of cable news, CNN down 38%, Fox News down 34%, and MSNBC down 25%. So again, they've maybe held on to a little bit more of their audience.
We've got a media, frankly, that's driven by profits in how do we get the highest ratings, how do we get the most clicks in media, and especially when you've got newsrooms that have been moved into the entertainment divisions of these massive media corporations. The news becomes entertainment. And what is entertaining? Well, drama and conflict sells.
It does give you a certain distrust on what you're hearing because you know everyone, even the ones that promote we're not coming at you with an angle, on both the right and the left, are coming at you with an angle.
They're simply there to put forth a narrative. They're not acting as news as we once knew it or as journalists as we traditionally understood them to be. They're simply trying to forward certain political or corporate interests.
If you look at all of these things and the way that it was reported, the way the 2020 election was reported, the way that things were reported as truth, and you better not question it when it comes to the way that the pandemic occurred and began. There were so many things where the media, it wasn't even biased media anymore. It became activist media.
We can survive with a media people don't like. We cannot survive with a media people do not trust.
It became very aggressive, the rhetoric towards people, when the entire purpose of journalism is to question the prevailing narrative.
I think for a lot of people, it's that. You've lost trust in what you're hearing is the truth.
A recently released survey from the Anti-Defamation League found incidents of anti-Semitism are on the rise on college campuses around the nation.
We are representing Dr. Melissa Landa, who was a professor at the University of Maryland for 10 years until she was dismissed in 2018 because of her pro-Israel views and her Jewish faith.
What exactly happened at the University of Maryland, where you were a professor for 10 years?
There was a virulent anti-Semitic professor there. Once that began to happen, I began to experience a hostile work environment at the University of Maryland. And I went to Israel for Passover. I was reprimanded and told that I was out of bounds from university policy and I needed to come back.
You actually had authorization from the university to go?
Yes, I had authorization and I was covering my classes. I was following university protocol.
Anti-Semitism is now spread far and wide like never before, thanks to social media.
Anti-Semitic attitudes, including in our own data measured in the fall of 2020, not very long ago, consistently show higher levels among young people.
And on the first night of Passover, I received this hostile email from my superior telling me that I was basically at risk of losing my job.
We've seen attacks on students because of their support for Israel. We've seen that they've been excluded from spaces because of their support for Israel.
They backed away from any attempts to try and settle this matter before having to go into court. The lawsuit has been filed.
She expressed pro-Israel sentiment, but never was anti any of these other groups. When you look at this and you say to yourself, why, after the EEOC said settle the case? I mean, that's what they told the University of Maryland. Settle this. Go to conciliation and settle this matter. Instead, they fire her. They double down on it. And you ask yourself, why would they do that?